there should be a captain in there. There should be a captain in there. Gotta stick with the pirate shtick.
Absolutely. Stacey.
Thank you, everybody, for choosing to come spend a little bit of your Saturday with me. And, hey, and please, seriously, feel free to laugh. I do make my presentations funny on purpose. Okay, so I will not bore you with death by PowerPoint or any of that typical stuff. I'll make audit fun for you in this section, at least. So, covered the, the traditional high points. I got all the typical certifications that you got to have for this thing. And, for this session, I am your captain now. I also do the fun stuff such as endurance sports, Go Ruck, Ironman. That is why I am the Iron Pirate. When I crossed that finish line, I got announced as also an Iron Pirate. So, and yes, this captain went down with her ship this past fall, getting out my gigantic lawn ornament, which is a pirate ship complete with pirate captain skeleton. Yeah, it fell on me, tore my ACL. And, yeah. Got that repaired right before Thanksgiving, but yeah, the captain went down with her ship and I'm back to walking like 6 miles a day. So, hey. So this is one of my favorite things, and I love it because NIST actually said this. This is in NIST Special Publication 853 revision 4. Compliance is not security. I use this in every single compliance presentation that I do. Compliance is where we start. I won't bore you with the. It will be available to you guys, and you know where to find it now. But even NIST says, this is our baseline. This is what we use. This is our commonality. So we know that we are on similar wavelengths. We're not using this as we are all secure, because we're not. If we were, we wouldn't keep having all these data breaches. And why is that? And hey, let's be bad guys, because this is another thing I also like to support. As defenders, we need to think like our adversary. We need adversarial thinking for our defenders. Work with your red team. Get that purple team going so you've got that offensive set. You can't really protect your systems, and unless you're looking at it from a point of view, who's going to come in here and really play with all this? Okay, I still got TLS 1.0 running. Well, can they physically get in and do something with this? Or, are there plenty of roadblocks? These are things to consider. Is it the end all be all? So, here's where I get scary a little bit. So in this survey, there is 5,600 IT professionals surveyed. 66% of the healthcare organizations that these professionals were from experienced ransomware in 2021. That's a pretty hefty lift, right? It's pretty widespread. We're seeing as we go along. It's very popular because it's easy. And the thing is, there's been about 5,150 data breaches between 2009 and 2022 reported to HHS, Health and Human Services. So that's quite a considerable amount. And that actually resulted in 382 million records that were breached. So when you think about that, now that does include Anthem. Anthem is still the biggest overall single loss. That's quite considerable. But we have a lot of stuff that's out there. And it keeps getting more. Aside from that, credential theft is also continuing to rise. 55% of the respondents were highly concerned about credential theft, more so external than internal. Now, obviously, this is a concern because when you have data breaches at other programs, people are breaching passwords. It's very easy to go, hey, let's take Bob's password and see if it works where it works, because we can find that out from LinkedIn. So, sensitive data and employee. What do we have an employee? Well, not everything gets encrypted, unfortunately. We might have, your health information, social security numbers, which you shouldn't be sending over email. Doesn't mean people don't do it. PII, PHI. I've even had clearance information. It all gets out there. Now, these top two, this is out of IBM's X-Force and their surveys. So out of what their respondents and what they saw, they had 41% of phishing attempts that it was the top method, initial way into the networks. And then there, they were easily in the networks and going around. Who would think it? That's so easy. All you got to do is just click on a little link. Are we doing phishing exercises? Show of hands. Even the university I teach at for fun, I got to report. But, not still with all of this, people still fall prey to phishing exercises because it's just easy. We don't take the time and it's like, oh, hey, I might have won something, or oh, your electric bill's not getting paid. Well, this isn't my electric company. They're still going to click it. I understand it, but it still works. Also, 26% of known vulnerabilities are still being used as an entry point. So while this has been a decrease in terms of entryway, it had been higher in previous years. It's still showing that we're not keeping up with patching. Now, this could be for various reasons, such as having legacy systems or patches not working due to other underlying issues. We've all had those. You roll it out, it breaks something, roll it back. Sometimes it doesn't get addressed, but then it doesn't get blocked at the firewall. It's forgotten. It was too much of a hassle. You're not getting audited on it. But security misconfiguration continues to still be a top issue. And this is things such as simply, you haven't configured your user access correctly. You're not removing people when they've moved on to different jobs. So they have elevated privileges that they shouldn't, or you have taken away ports and protocols that shouldn't be there. Someone just stood up a new server. Why is there FTP on it? Well, someone did not follow the configuration plan. Yes, I can actually see these.
Mhm.
Or when you're walking around and you're doing the physical audit, and it's like, why is there Bluetooth on the system? There shouldn't be Bluetooth allowed. Fix this. It's real life. So why aren't we failing? Well, there are multiple things that we need. And this is stuff that you will see. It doesn't matter what and it's more supporting. You need to have measurability. Now, what metrics you want to use, that's up to you. Higher level. This is going to be, what is it that actually matters? What is measurable to you? What is your maturity model that you are focusing on? Are you looking simply at vulnerabilities closed? Do you want to focus on how you're doing on your, are you aiming to get to where you're going to pass CMMC 2.0? And do you have to get through PCI? Are you upgrading to PCI 4.0? Yeah, that's coming up really fast. Yeah, oh, look at this. Still see this. We need to have validation before you go ahead and you add your new technologies. You've got to have your security integrated into that full system lifecycle. And it's not just when you're doing your software development, it's the full system. So if you're going to be doing some upgrades, maybe at least ask security, hey, is this going to introduce some new vulnerability? If we're moving over to a major difference, because it might not be something that seems obvious, but it could trigger another issue if there's a disconnect, especially when you do have someone like me coming through. Be, hey, you didn't have this last year. Guess what? Where's your documentation? Where's your change management? Where's all your records? Did this get signed off on? Didn't. Okay. What do we do about that? Oh. Who here has a third-party vetting program? Yeah. Yeah, it needs work.
Didn't want me to raise my hand again.
Mark, I'm gonna assume you've got everything. I know you get it. So with third parties, we do have issues because we are reliant on them. Now, think of this. I'll take on for this. With the Anthem breach, you know, they had all the health information. So you had a whole lot of like social security number and other related information that was on their servers breached, along with all the information associated with the individual. But after that, a whole lot of organizations started having third-party vetting, especially requiring Anthem to provide cybersecurity insurance proof. I worked for a company that required them to show that they had a ton of cybersecurity insurance. Yeah. And they had levels of requirements based on how other companies would answer how they performed as far as, you know, did they have stocks or were they PCI compliant, depending on what services they were purchasing, services or software that they were purchasing from these other third parties. You know, so it was basically go through the list. What are your risks? And then what? Because the other thing is, if they have a breach, how's that going to impact you and your client base? Are you going to end up having your customers exposed because of your data from them ending up in this third? It's a never-ending act. And configuration management kind of ties in with that risk validation, but yeah, there isn't always a full configuration management process in place. For this, you know, you want to put in your change request, get it reviewed, get it approved before it goes through. Pretty simple, but sometimes this gets done.
Stacey, if I may, you said for the third parties, we use that because we'll outsource business functions. But the thing to remember, you can never outsource your reputational risk.
Oh, that's true.
You can't go and say, oh, it wasn't my fault. It's my third party who screwed it up.
Yeah.
No, it's your customer and it's your loss. So recognize that, please.
Absolutely. Well, and that's why you want to vet your third parties, because if they mess up, it's still gonna impact you because you're gonna lose clients. It's hard.
Well, there's not all just the data breach aspect of it, but there's just the continuing business functionality. We have where I'm at, we had a recent issue with our mail house. They ransomware, and that literally stopped us from being able to send invoices for about 2.5 weeks, which turned into a cash flow issue.
It's kind of important to ask them what their fault and communication, because if it doesn't match with our business needs, and they're not a good match period as a partner, so.
Absolutely. You have to consider what is that service level. Because if they have an issue, and they can't get back up and running, that's going to impact what they can deliver to you and how you're.
If your SLA is 4 hours, there's just 3 days.
Yeah.
Good point.
Inventory. Oh, yeah. Let's say you have a massively worldwide organization. I won't name names. But how do you track this stuff? You know, hey, we all got barcodes everywhere. But you go around, you scan. But you go around, it's like, well, let me put it this way. Part of what I do as a QSA is when I'm going out, I'm taking pictures of various things, and then I'm going back and I'm comparing it to my list. Is this barcode on my inventory list? And this is part of my spot check. You know, I'm looking at the payment devices, I'm looking at computer systems, and I'm doing spot checks everywhere. And, sometimes you end up with, hey, this stuff doesn't match. When's the last time you really fully double check the stuff? It happens. And sometimes it's just because they're not updating the barcode fully, or they've switched it, they changed their systems, but that still leaves holes where someone can come in, they could take something, they could physically take a system. Are you gonna know? Or, the whole story of the system that got walled off behind drywall and no one knew where that server went. That's an old sysadmin joke, yeah. But it did happen somewhere, place, and time. But knowing what assets you have and where they are, it prevents having things such as people taking assets home that they're not supposed to, having things grow legs and wander off. Also, legacy systems are continually an issue. It's the bane of everybody. But it also introduces security issues, particularly when you have end of life cycle for software support, and when you have PCI coming through, and that's not supported anymore. What do you have from Microsoft for your contract? You can get off of that next year, right? This is going away, right? So you have a lot of shepherding, pushing. Yeah, not hurting. Everyone heard of cyber hygiene at this point? Yeah. Do your antivirus, do your patches. Be good. Try to be good. Doesn't always work. I want to say these last two are really important. I don't just say that because I'm biased. Improve your audit support functions. There's a lot of offense when it comes to audit. not all of us are the bad guys. I mean, hey, I'm pretty personable. People usually like me when they get me for their audits because I try to make everyone laugh. Not doing too good today, but yeah, I try to make it easy. Give me your documentation. We're good to go. I'll get what I can get, and then I ask you the follow-up questions. I do the mandatory interviews. Part of what it is. But it's a back and forth support, whether you're internal or external audit. It's all about a give and take. You got to have documentation. It is just how it is. But also, it's not a battle. We can actually help you guys because we can help you get more budget. It's not a bad thing. You just got to know how to word it so you can get your budget increase because, oh, hey, we're not going to pass audit if we don't have it. And also, it's too difficult. This one really gets used a whole lot. Break it up in chunks. It's not that bad. I know the verbiage is a pain in the butt, but as someone like me that's read this stuff for 20 years, I'll put it into basic terms. But going back to that whole compliance is not security. Yeah, a lot of it is checkbox for the way people usually do it. Please, for the love of God, don't do checkbox. Honestly, it doesn't take a lot to meet compliance requirements. And when you're looking at a lot of them, it's mostly straightforward. Hopefully, not always, but it's not the be all end all of security, so it doesn't take too much to meet it. So please just do it. As I said, if we can work together, we can secure your network. You know, hey, let's make it a team effort. There's no point in us, beating each other up. Now, for those auditors that aren't great, go ahead. I'll speak to them. But hey, for those of them like me, all I can do is do the best I can based on the information that you provide me. So the better documentation that you can have gathered together beforehand, the better your audit is gonna go. I don't say this to be condescending. I say this with all seriousness. Clients that have their documentation all ready, except for the stuff that they have to get me in screenshots as we go through it in interviews. They're the best people ever because they're like, yep, here's my 4 quarters of scans. Here's all my policies. Here's my procedures. I'm good to go. I remember what we did last year. And it's like, great. I love those people. Because otherwise, it's going to be you when I'm bugging you every week. Where's my documentation? You got those policies? Did you review them? Did you update that table that says you? Did someone actually write off that they reviewed it in it? That's the important thing. Now, there's a lot of cybersecurity frameworks. And this isn't all of them. This is just stuff I've worked with. There's more out there. And there's more coming. But just a little bit about some of this stuff, because we are running out of time. I'm surprised I didn't talk faster. Normally I do. So, scope. This will make your life way better when you do audits. Particularly if you're doing CMMC or PCI, if you can manage to segment and scope, it will dramatically reduce what you're responsible for. So you want to have anything that has your CMMC related stuff for your government DOD, your PCI, anything that actually has cardholder data related, if you can shrunk down, you have so much less stuff that has to get tested and has to be documented. Save you time and money. You can find it as money. And it's less time with me. It can be a good thing or a bad thing. Risk assessments. Now, risk assessment is on you guys. You should be doing an annual in-house, excuse me. Should be doing an annual in-house risk assessment to ensure that you are prepared for someone like me to come through. Think of it as your dry run. Are you prepared for your external auditor? Do you have your documentation? Have you had your pen test? Are you prepared for your pen test? Do you need a pen test? Not everything requires a pen test. It depends on what level you're at. Things to think about. And also, did you have a major system change? Because that requires more documentation. What are you guys getting out of this? Documentation. How do my audits go? Depending on the size of the network, I'm going to spend 1 or even 2 weeks doing interviews with staff. And there's going to be security testing. Some other team's going to do penetration testing, duties. And I'm going to get to do a physical walkthrough. So yeah, I'm still going to be looking for guards, guns, gates, CCTV. And also checking to make sure, for PCI that there's no skimmers. Keep in mind, failure is possible. If you're having a PCI, if you fail, you will end up with a prioritized approach, where I will lay out for you what you need to do based on the council's recommendations. They have it ordered for your failures. I say that in general, as far as like the controls that were noted as failure, because they're very black and white. You pass or you fail. You don't have a compensating control. And then there will be a prioritized list for what you have to fix. Now, if you have compensating controls because you changed vendors and you weren't able to have all 4 quarters of passing and results, might be able to work with it. It depends on your bank. Some are nicer than others. And it also depends on how much of an issue it is. And of course, no, POAM is more of a federal thing, but you should always look at your vulnerabilities and have a plan of action for remediating those. And you should be closing them out in preferably 30 days, because that should be your patch cycle too. Now, we want to improve your process. My recommendations are make it repeatable. You're going to be seeing someone like me every year. So just like you do as far as having incident response, a little playbook. This is totally repeatable. Structure your team, make your timeline, build it backwards. You come out every year because that's your time frame for redoing your audit. So know when you've got to have stuff, plan out having your policies updated and reviewed, plan for gathering reports. Oh, and make sure that you actually download those from your ASB if you're doing PCI. I have had a case where, well, they didn't, and then they weren't able to get it. So that caused an issue. Yeah. Make sure you have them in your own servers. And once again, improve your communication with your audit team, because you don't want to have, lack of communication be an issue that holds you up. Communicate. There's no dumb question. There's no wrong question. We'll answer it. Okay. The only wrong question is one that doesn't get asked. So little bit more on solving the problem. The only real problem is how we think about it. Keep up with your internal risk assessments. If you have like a major change, you might need to do an additional small risk assessment just to make sure it's not going to have a bigger impact. Make sure that your vulnerability management is actually working, that people are actually managing that and following through. Just because you have the program doesn't mean that someone is following up with the groups, that they're doing their patches and that it's getting corrected. If they're just collecting the scan reports, that's not a vulnerability management program. So validate, always validate. Validate scans, validate inventory. Please document. And with that, questions? Yes.
I have a question. Might be a long one. Here. So for BSides DSS, for small to medium businesses that aren't level 1 or level 2. And testing required is 11.3 required. Anywhere. I'm having a little problem.